Hello everyone, and welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to get started on the restoration series for this 1976 Bally Flip Flop pinball machine. Now this machine apparently does come on, and when you try to start the game, it has trouble with resetting. That's what the previous owner told me. So we'll take a look into that. It could be something to do with the score motor, probably some out of adjustment switches, but we will figure all that out when we fire up the machine. And if there are any other problems along the way, we will fix them and get this machine to an up and running state once again. We'll upgrade it to LEDs and replace the rubbers, and whatever else it needs, we will do. So let's get started. So here is our Bally Flip Flop pinball machine from 1976. You can see the back glass is in very good condition. I don't see any paint flaking on this glass whatsoever. The play field, on the other hand, is not in as good of condition. It's okay, but down here especially, you can see in the light that the coating on top of the paint is starting to come off. It's no longer flat, and it's been touched up down here because you can see this font doesn't look quite right there. So it's been touched up a little bit on the play field, and it is definitely going to need a good cleaning to look better. The front of the machine looks pretty good. It's had some paint touch-up, you can tell, but the coin door in this machine looks pretty nice. It's not dented up like the one on my Jungle Queen, so it looks pretty nice. The side art, though, is not the best. It's been touched up in quite a few places, as you can see, so someone definitely tried to cover up some existing flaws, and they didn't get the paint color quite right, so they didn't really do much. You can see around the head, it's been repainted brown, and it should be white. You can see we still have the original artwork on this side, so that's what it's supposed to look like. But on the other side, it has been painted full brown, so the artwork is no longer there. I don't mind the color, actually, because this is more of a farming, cowboy, horse themed machine, as you can see. And so the brown color kind of fits it because it's similar to like a barn or something. So they didn't choose a bad color. They just didn't do a good job repainting the machine. That might be something I tackle later, but for now we are going to get the mechanical stuff working. This side has also been touched up. So that's the kind of machine that we're dealing with here. This is a project machine. This is not a show machine, but we're going to get it working anyway. Here's a quick look inside the back box of this machine. I've already shown it in a previous video, so I'm just going to make this super quick, just so you can see what is going on back here. Everything looks nice back here. I don't see anything immediately that needs attention. So everything back here looks to be in good condition. And under the playfield is a similar story. Everything is there, and it seems to be in good condition. When I first took a look underneath this playfield, the score motor was not screwed down all the way on this screw here, and these stepper units were missing their screws, and they were kind of just laying about in the machine. So I found some screws, and I screwed these back down into their spots, so now they're nice and tight, and I secured the main score motor down. So as you can see, everything back here looks good, including the things that are on the underside of the playfield here. The coin door, if I open it up, you can see it's quite dirty, so I'll be cleaning that up. But it's missing its coin mechanism, so I imagine in the future I will find some 25-cent mechanisms to put in there. But it seems like everything on the door is there, so that's nice. This machine has partially been upgraded to LEDs, but not completely. You can see we have an LED here, but a bulb there. And the playfield also has some LEDs in it. You can see right here, these are some of the bonus lights. Those have LEDs in them, but if we look over here, there's some incandescent bulbs. So part of the machine has been upgraded. The back box has not. I took a look behind the back glass and everything looks normal, and it just has all incandescent bulbs back there. This machine will get upgraded to all warm white LEDs when everything is said and done, so it will look nice and bright when it's finished. So let's go ahead and plug this thing in and see what it does. So because this machine has been powered on in recent times, I am comfortable with plugging it in and seeing what it does. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the power cord, and we'll see if either the machine comes on due to the power switch being on, or if nothing happens. All right, the machine is plugged in, so the power switch is off. So let's go ahead and turn the power switch on and see what the machine does. Okay, the score motor moved a little bit, and it looks like everything came on. Oh, we have some 455 bulbs in the back box. I didn't notice that. See how they're flashing? So nothing is controlling those bulbs to making them flash. Those are 455 type bulbs, and they will blink on random intervals like that. So that's cool. We have some of those in the back box of this game. So this machine kind of has a mix of incandescent bulbs, warm white LEDs, and cool white LEDs. That's not great. I'll give you a closer look at what is going on here. So underneath this slingshot, we have a warm white LED, and you can see the filament of the incandescent bulb that's here. But up here we have cool white LEDs. Now I'm not against cool white LEDs, but for older games like this, I think warm white is definitely the way to go to make it look more original. If you have a machine like this, a newer one, this is a Bally Strange Science from 1986 that I'm working on, this machine would look much better with cool white and some color thrown in, just because it's a newer machine, it's got a lot more color, and usually these more flashy and newer machines look better with that. It's these earlier solid state and electromechanical machines like this one that really just look better with warm white. And so that's what I'll be doing to this machine. But you can see it did come up. I don't think we have all the lights lit. The game over light is lit, so it is in game over. We have lights lighting up the player one score reels. And I used to have a Bally 1976 hang glider, which mechanically was very similar to this machine. I can't remember if all of the reels are supposed to be lit in these Bally EMs, but I'll figure that out as we test it. What I want to do now is see if the machine will start. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is open the coin door here, and I'm going to push on one of the coin switches. Now, this machine is either going to do one of two things. It's either going to increase the counter here from 0 to 1, indicating the amount of credits. Some machines will do that instead of just start, but this, I can't remember how this one worked. So it's either going to do that or it's going to reset the machine. So let's see what that does. Okay. All right. Turn the machine off and we can see our first problem right away. So we're stuck in this endless loop of the machine trying to reset. Now, why is that? Well, it's because it's trying to reset all of the score reels back to 0 so the machine can start. But you can see this score reel stayed at 1 the whole time. So it's trying to reset this reel, but because the reel's not moving, it's just going to keep trying and trying and trying until that reel gets to 0, but it's not moving. So in order for the machine to reset properly, we need to diagnose that 10,000 point score reel on the first player. So let's go ahead and look behind the back box. I'll pull that score reel out and we will compare it to one that's adjusted properly, because these three here did not say 0 before. These actually reset properly. So in terms of that, these three reels are adjusted correctly. So we'll take a look at this one and I will show you what's going on with the switches on that reel. Before we do that though, I did want to take a look behind the back glass again, now that I know that there's those 455 bulbs, and we have quite a lot of them. There's, looks like 7 of them. So Those are cool to have. And you can see there are a lot of bulbs back here that are either burned out or just loose. Yeah, this one was loose. This game uses those really bad sockets. They're not the standard type that you would see where you can screw the light bulb in. I don't know what you call them. I'm just going to show you what they look like. They use that type of socket. You put the bulb in and then you just turn it a little bit till it stops. It's not the one with the spring on the bottom where you push it down, turn it like on a regular machine. These sockets are not reliable because these are the same sockets that are used. See that? It's just not a great socket. Those are the same sockets that are on my Bally nightclub bingo machine way over there. And I always have to battle those because getting the lights to stay in there and make a good connection is quite a challenge. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that on this machine. Let's see, what about this one? Is this one good? Looks dark, so this one's probably out. This one's not dark. Is it loose? Yep. So this is the kind of thing you have to deal with those sockets, is just loose bulbs. Yep, that one was loose. That one must be out. This one I can guarantee is out because it's dark. But yeah, you can just see what we'll have to deal with. Loose sockets to get some of these bulbs back up and running. I might keep those 455s in there because that makes it look kind of cool. But yeah, as you can see, we're going to have to clean up the score reels because they're quite dirty. So that is the inside of the back box behind the back glass. Looks pretty good, just need a little bit of a cleanup. Well, you know what? I just started up the machine again just because, and this score reel reset, and we got the ball in the plunger. So I turned the machine off and on. And what I'm going to do is a good test for all the score reels in the whole machine to see if they all will reset properly. So I'm going to go in the back, and I'm going to manually push down the coil to step these up once so they will all read 1, and we'll see if the game can reset them all. All right, so I've rolled all those over to 1 by stepping the coils, and it's apparent that they're going to need a major cleaning because some of them don't like to roll. So we're going to have to take some of the score reels apart and clean the actual track that the switch is right against. So we'll go ahead and start the game, and we'll see if it's able to reset all of the reels. And then we'll fix the coin door squeak as well. Okay, it did it. Some of them struggled a bit, like this one I saw right here was having trouble, because they just need to be cleaned up. They're filthy. I'm just going to give you a playfield view right now. We'll go ahead and do a proper test on all the score reels later. I just want to see what on the playfield works and what doesn't. So I'm going to shoot the ball. Plunger needs some attention. Just turn that off real quick. It was having trouble ejecting the ball back out into the plunger, so that's why it was doing that. The chime unit's working. The switches that I hit on the flippers seem to work. What I'm going to do is put the back glass back on so that you can see the lights that are actually being lit. So I'm going to go ahead and start this thing up again, and we will see if it resets. I'll give you a view of the score reels there. So let's see if it resets again. Yeah, the out-hole kicker is having trouble, so that's what it was doing there, but it finally got it, and so now the reset is complete. We can see that the ball count unit in this machine is working because we are at ball 1, so that's nice to see that that's working. All the score reels are reset. The bonus is at 1,000, which is the starting position. So I will tilt this back down here. So you can see, it looks like the machine is trying to work, so that is great. I'm gonna shoot the ball again. When I shot it the first time, it scored a 500-point switch, so maybe there's a switch that's like really close, and the vibration from the machine made it activate. We'll see if it does that again. Okay, not this time. The flags are working. Should get a 5,000-point bonus. We did. And the reason that this didn't get reset was because the ball tried again to shoot because it failed the first time. So that didn't quite go to the right position, but it's okay. The ball count unit is on ball 2 now. So that is working. I'm gonna try to keep it in play longer than 5 seconds, just so you can get an idea of what is working and what isn't. All right, so it looks like the core functionality of this machine is actually working. So that is nice. We'll do some manual testing here in a little bit just to see if everything works. One thing I am noticing about this machine though is that the double bonus has trouble scoring. So that happens if you're set to 5 balls per game. That'll happen on both ball 3 and ball 5. So we're at ball 4 right now. Some noisy flipper coils. Okay, so the reset of the flip. So I saw that it was having a little bit of trouble at the end of the bonus scoring there, so I'll definitely have to clean up the stepper units in this thing to make them nice again. And I did see some features being lit up when they were supposed to, like the extra ball and the resets flips when lit. I saw those lights coming on, so it seems like this machine wants to work. We're at ball 5. Let's play our last ball. Yeah, there is a stuck switch somewhere. Yeah, did you see how the double bonus didn't really want to work there? It should have scored 2 dings per light that was lit, so it should have dinged 4 times, but obviously that's going to be something we'll have to fix. The game did go into game over, it did end, so it seems like things are actually working for the most part, because if I tilt this back up again, you can see up on the top left, we have a match light on the back glass. So most of this game is actually working, which is pretty amazing for a machine that's as beat up as this. All right, so I've been playtesting this game some more, and it's definitely got its fair share of problems, but I am surprised how much is actually working, because this game looks like it's been neglected for quite some time. It's definitely not in great shape. It still has trouble resetting the 10,000 point score reel for player 1, so I'm going to have to do a deep cleaning on all of the score reels. You can see the credit unit has a number 1 there, and that's because during one of my play tests, I got the match unit to match what was on the score, and so it gave me a credit. But sometimes it won't start, even though it knows it has a credit, because you can see the credit light is lit, so it knows it's got something. But if I hit start, you can see nothing happens, and it's not the start button switch. You can see that is making contact, and it does actually start, because if I push the coin switch, it will go ahead and start. But the credit unit will not go back down to 0, so something's wrong back there. As far as I can tell, the match unit is working, because at the end of each game, a different number is lit, and when it did match, it gave me a credit. So it seems like that's working okay. And there's actually been a couple new problems since the last clip, so let me show you what all I found wrong with this machine. There's our first problem. Our first problem is it doesn't have the strength to kick the ball out, and I don't think it's the coil. It's probably more that the switch that closes briefly that gives power to that coil is dirty, and so if it's supposed to send, say, 25 volts to that coil, maybe that dirty contact is only allowing like 15 volts to go through, and so that's why it's having trouble. So as you saw on my first play test of this machine, every so often it would score 500 points just on its own without me hitting a switch. Well, I think that is caused by one of these mushroom bumpers, because when the ball hits one of these, it will score 500 points, and if you have the 4 flags flipped and you hit one of these, it'll make your bonus go up by 4,000 points, and it'll flip the flags back. And when I had these flags all the way back and it did that 500 point scoring thing on its own, it would do exactly that. So I believe one of these bumpers, mushroom bumpers, the switches are a little bit too close together. So we'll have to go under the playfield and look at that. But speaking of the flips, that is one of the new problems that has developed. So what's supposed to happen is when you hit one of these targets, the corresponding flag should flip like that, and it'll make your bonus go up by 1. Well, 2 through 4 work, but for some reason now 1 is not. For the first one, it'll flip the flag back, but what's supposed to happen is after it's flipped and you hit the target, it shouldn't do anything. You can see, but when I hit number 1, it does. And it keeps making the bonus go up. And each one of these flags is controlled by its own individual relay, so maybe we need to look at the relay for flag number 1 and see if it's not energizing or what's going on. And because the number 1 flag isn't working, when I hit one of the mushroom bumpers, what it should do is flip the flags back and make the bonus go up by 4,000 points, but it won't do that. You can see it just scores the 500, and then it alternates one of the relays that changes the playfield features. You can see now these lights are lit. And here's another problem that happens with this game. You can hear that? There's a relay that's not working quite right, and I just noticed that it is the relay that alternates the playfield features, because you can see the lights flicker when I make the machine vibrate. See how these two, see how those are flickering? So whatever relay is responsible for alternating the playfield features needs to have its switches cleaned. I also noticed that the flippers are quite noisy. You can hear that. And I think this one's a little bit weak, because when I play test it, this left flipper up here has a lot more strength than this one. So maybe this game will need a flipper rebuild. Maybe it just needs some switch tune-up in the flipper assembly. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at any of the switches in this thing yet. But what I want to show now in more detail is what this machine does when it scores your end of ball bonus. So right now, the double bonus is not lit. So when we drain the ball, we should get 13,000 points, and the regular bonus does work fine. So I'll go ahead and drain the ball, and you can hear it score 13 times. flipped the flags back, so it knew that they were flipped, but as you can see, we still have trouble with the out-hole kicker. So that bonus is working fine. Now, how this game's supposed to operate is if you have it on 3 balls per game, your last ball will automatically have a double bonus, and if you have it on 5 balls per game, the double bonus will be lit on both ball 3 and ball 5. All right, so now we're on ball 3, and you can see the double bonus light is lit. I'm gonna go ahead and advance the bonus up pretty high so you can see the problem we're having. And you know what I just noticed? Number 1 is working now, because if I hit the target, it's not flipping back, and it says resets flips when lit. So we must just have some dirty switches. Let's see if that actually works. It does. So I just got to clean the relays up. That's pretty unsurprising. This machine is quite dirty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drain the ball, and you'll be able to see the problem that we're having. So right now, the 9,000 light is lit, and since we have our double bonus, it should score twice for every light that's lit. So it should ding 18 times, but listen to what happens. It only did it once, and throughout that process, the score reel only scored like 1 time. So our double bonus is not working at all. And another small thing that's up with it that's probably just due to dirty switches is whenever there's a little bit of vibration, the shoot again light will flicker. So whatever relay is responsible for lighting that light either has some switches really close together or they need cleaning. So you can kind of understand the level of filth that we're going to have to clean up here. But as far as I can tell, every one of the other playfield features is working. On this game, to light up the extra ball, you have to get your bonus to at least 11,000 points, and that will light your extra ball at the 2 kick-out holes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. All right, so now my bonus is high enough. You can see our extra ball is lit at the kick-out hole on the right. So if I go ahead and put the ball in there, our shoot again light should come on. And it does. And if I go ahead and drain the ball, it was at ball 4 before I drained the ball, and it's still at ball 4, so the extra ball feature's working. But you could hear it scoring 500 points as the bonus was going down. So we still have that switch in one of these 2 bumpers that we have to worry about. And unlike on my Gottlieb Jungle Queen machine when I first got it, this game, when you drain the last ball, it will end the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and just score some points and then drain it. Game over light is now lit and the game ended, and we have a match unit number lit up on the back glass. I know you can't see it. And it did attempt to flip this flag back over, and that's another thing I've noticed is sometimes when it's like that, it'll just kind of shoot it like halfway and then go back. So probably dirty switches in that too that's causing it to be a little weak. So more switch tune-up in this machine. But now that I've shown you all that, let's go ahead and do the score reel test on this machine and see what all is working and what isn't. And in case you're not aware, on these electromechanical machines, you have to go through and test every score reel on the machine because each one of them has its own set of switches. And if any one of those is misadjusted, then your score reels cannot score right. So I'm going to go ahead and start the game again, and we'll go through the score reel test. So you can see it's able to reset the score reels, and we did already go through that on the first play test. I advanced all of these up to 1 and had the machine reset them. So that's working. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the players. I can see we have some lights burned out because I would imagine the player 1 light here is supposed to be lit right now. But we'll go ahead and see if the others are working. I'm going to go ahead and put another credit in. There's player 2, player 3, player 4. So this machine lights all of them. It doesn't just light one. So our player 1 light must be burned out. But we have all 4 players, so let's go ahead and test the reels. So what we're going to do is we're going to test and see when this score reel rolls over, this one should advance to 1. So I'm going to go ahead and score 90 points. And so when I hit the slingshot again, this should roll over to 100. And it does. So we know that the switch on this score reel was adjusted right because it was able to send power to this one to flip it. So let's do the same test now on the 100-point reel. So when I do that again, this one should flip to 1. And it does. And to test the 10,000, what I'm going to do is score a bonus that's high enough. Or I could just do that. So it should flip over now. And it does. So you can see all of our player 1 score reels are working. So now when I go ahead and drain the ball, I should get my 2,000 point bonus, and it should advance to player 2. The light should go from here to there, and it should stay on ball 1. And it did just that, so that's working. Let's go ahead and test the player 2 reels. I haven't done this yet. That one flipped a little bit too early. I'm going to test that one again. Let's do it on a... Okay, so that is working. It's just because I was doing it on the slingshot, and so the switch kind of hit itself again because of the coil. So that's working fine. Okay, thousands is working. And 10,000s is working, so that's good. Let's go ahead and advance it to player 3. Okay, we're on player 3. I need to clean up those score reels. Those things are dirty. You see how when it was on the number 8, I'm going to do that again. See, when it gets down to here, you see how dirty they are? That's because they've been sitting on all zeros for so long. That's just the dirt that has settled on top of the score reel. So every one of these things needs to be cleaned up. Okay, that's working. All right, player 3 is working. We'll go to player 4. We're on player 4. Okay, that was a problem. All right, so we have issues with the switch on the 10s reel for player 4. Okay, so that's a consistent problem. So I'm going to have to take a look at the switches on that score reel. Let's test the 100-point one. Okay, that one's fine. How about thousands? And that's working good. Okay, so it seems like our only problem is the 10s reel on player 4. So that's why you need to go through and test every score reel, because each one of them is independent. So you have to go through and test each one. So now what we'll do is we'll drain the ball and we'll see if it advances to ball 2. And it did. We're at ball 2, player 1. So the game logic is working fine. So why don't we go ahead and tackle that first? Let's go ahead and take out all of the score reels one by one, get them all cleaned up because they're super filthy, get all the switches nice and clean, and then we'll do the test after we're done doing that. And you know what? Before we do the score reels, let's go ahead and first solve the problem where the machine doesn't start when there are credits in it. And so the first place I want to look is here. This is the credit unit, and this is the wheel that will turn and show you how many credits you have in the machine. And so how this works is you have a step up coil and a step down coil. So if I go ahead and manually energize the step up coil, you can see it turns the wheel and increases your credit count, or this one will decrease it. And there's a set of switches on this unit right here, and one of those will control if the machine can start or not. So there's our credit unit switches. I'm going to go ahead and step this down to 0, and those switches should adjust. So that's all the way down. I'm going to step that back up to 1. So you can see those bottom 2 switches there close. And when they're at the 0 position, they're open. So it looks like they are closing. That middle one looks like it's barely opening, so maybe I should adjust that one. All right, I made that a little bit better. So right now the credit wheel is at 0, and you can see that middle switch is open. If I go ahead and step it up to 1, that switch closes, and so does the rightmost switch. So those 2 switches look fine. And if you're wondering what this switch is for, that is your maximum credits switch. So when this thing advances, there's a little post right here, and so when this advances up high enough, it'll go ahead and open that switch. And so what that'll do is it'll prevent the machine from accepting any more credits. So it is at the maximum credits, and that is actually how you adjust how many credits you want the machine to be able to handle. So if you didn't want this machine to be able to take 25 credits, what you can do is once you have this down far enough, you can take this screw out and put it in a different hole. You can see there's 2 more of them up there. So you can lower the amount of credits that this machine is able to take. So that's how you adjust that on a mechanical machine. So it doesn't look like the credit unit is where our problem is. But sometimes looks can be deceiving. The credit counter switches may be working just fine, but maybe there's a dirty connection that's preventing the signal from going through. So I advanced the credit counter unit back to 1. I went ahead and cleaned up all of the switches on it, and I'm going to hit the start button, and let's see if it starts now. It does not start. So our problem is really not on the credit unit. It's somewhere else in the machine. And just for a sanity check, I went ahead and cleaned up the start button switch. That's not the issue either. Well, we'll come back to that later. What I want to do now is clean up these score reels and do the switch adjustments that they need. So on these Bally games, to remove the score reels, you pull up on this little metal release, and the score reel will pull right out. So here's what one of these Bally score reels looks like. You can see we have our coil there that steps it. We have 3 switches there and another switch there. And so when this thing steps, those switches will move around. So right now it's at 0. You can see there those 3 switches are open. If I go ahead and step this thing to 1, you can see the top 2 switches close. The bottom one is still open. And it will stay that way throughout positions 1 through 8. So if I go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, when I step to 9, it'll close that bottom switch. And that switch is responsible for sending power to the next score reel so that it'll roll over when this one goes back to 0. So when this steps, it sends power to that one and then releases that power once it goes back to 0. So that's how that works. And so that's how the switches are supposed to be. So this one is adjusted correctly. And the switch up here just opens when the coil is all the way in like that. So that's how that one should be. And you can see inside the score reel, we also have some copper contacts. There's going to be another wiper in there, right there. Whenever the score reel steps, that wiper in there will move around. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can kind of see it moving. That is there so that the machine knows what spot this score reel is in. For example, when it matches at the end of the game, it'll know what digit is showing up on the back glass. And if we look at the other score reels, you can see not all of them have that board. These 2 on the end do, the thousands and the 10,000s, but the hundreds does not. So not all of the score reels have those copper contacts just because they all don't need it. So now I'm going to go ahead and take all of these score reels apart, clean them up, and get them back into tip-top shape. All right, I've gone ahead and cleaned up the player 2, player 1, and the player 3 score reels, and I'm just starting the player 4 reels. And I found the problem on the 10s reel for player 4, that when you scored a 10-point switch, it would randomly step up the hundreds reel when it's not supposed to. So the problem is what I expected. It's a misadjusted switch. It's this innermost switch. You can see it's this one here. it's closed right now and it should be open. So the reel right now is at position 1. And so if I go to position 9, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and if I switch it to 9, that's when that switch should close. You can see it's actually closed now. And if I go to 0, they should all open. You can see they are all open. Even the innermost switch is open. But if I go ahead and advance it back to 1, you can see the switch is not adjusted far enough out because this little white piece here is pushing on it a little bit, which it's supposed to do. But the bottom blade on that switch needs to go out a little more because it should be open in positions 1 through 8. So it must be barely closed, and so that's why this reel is advancing when it's not supposed to, because that switch is what sends the power to the other reel. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these cleaned up, and I'll show you what I do to actually go ahead and clean one of these up. So taking apart and cleaning up one of these Bally score reels is actually pretty easy. So the first thing you have to do is remove this little clip here in the center and take out these 3 screws. And then the reel just pulls right off. And you can see just how dirty it is. So all that's going to get cleaned off and it's going to look like brand new after it's been cleaned. But I don't just clean up the reel, I clean up all of the inner workings of the mechanism itself. So how this reel works is when you step it, when the coil steps it, you can see it turns this gear here, and then this little piece here is what's responsible for moving the switches around. So you can see as I step it, it's not changing, but when it gets to right there, you can see right now it's in position 9 because that bottom switch is closed. And if I do it again, that's position 0. It's a little bit hard to move right now because I haven't cleaned it, but it'll be a lot easier to move that once it gets cleaned. So the next thing you have to do is remove these 2 smaller clips right here that hold in these 2 plastic pieces. Then remove these 2 springs, and then we have to remove the remaining 4 plastic pieces here. So the first one to come out is this little one here that just pulls out after you remove the clip. Then it's going to be the gear, and so because this isn't completely round, you can see there's a little section right here, a little divot. So what you want to do is hold that in and spin this to where the divot is right here so that you can actually pull it out. So you can see now it's out. And this little piece has the 2 switches on the back that ride against the contacts on this little PCB right here. And I'm going to be putting some dielectric grease along these contacts just to ensure that it rides smoothly across the contacts. And it has to be dielectric grease because if it's not, then that grease will be conductive and it will short out all of those contacts, which would cause a lot of problems. So it's got to be dielectric grease that you put on right there. And then you can go ahead and pull this piece out and this piece out, which includes the plunger for the coil. And there you go. That's all the taking apart you have to do to clean out this area here. Now this score reel actually looks pretty good. There were some of them that were a lot worse than this, but you can still see there's a good level of grime like on these little metal pieces here. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all of this out, clean all of the shafts to make sure that everything rides smooth, put new grease on the contacts, clean up all this, and I'll show you a before and after of what these pieces look like. So now you can see just how dirty the little pieces are. You can see all the grime on that. Those pieces should be white and the dirt is making it look kind of greenish almost. That's more of how it should look, like that. So I need to clean all of this off, clean all those pieces. This one's pretty bad, you can see. And on this piece, when you're cleaning it, you want to go ahead and clean off the coil plunger as well as the coil sleeve inside the coil in the actual score mechanism in the machine, because that will make the coil operate much smoother. And here's the main nylon gear that controls the score reel movement. And I also go ahead and unscrew those 2 switches and clean underneath those because there's some grime in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all these pieces, including the springs and the clips, because they got a lot of grease on them as well. And I'll show you what they look like afterward. And that's what the pieces look like after cleaning. You can see all that black grease gunk is basically gone. Looks a million times better. And the reel itself looks great. And so now these parts are ready to be put back in. And I've also gone ahead and cleaned up the main mechanism here. You can see it looks a lot better. I went ahead and put some dielectric grease on the contacts right there. It only takes a little bit to coat that whole area, so that's how much you need. And I went ahead and cleaned all the dirt out of the coil sleeve right there. So let's go ahead and put these parts back in. So there is an order for how this goes back together, so I want to show you that real quick. So the first piece that goes in is this piece here. This is the one that pushes the switches up and down. That just goes right there. And then you can go ahead and put the clip on that goes over that. The next piece is the one with the coil plunger on it. That goes in like this, and it slots into the two little slots on these metal pieces here, like that. And then you put the nylon gear in, and the easiest way to do it is to hold this piece back, the one with the coil plunger, and put it in just like that, and there you go. And then this little nylon piece goes in the shaft, and you have to make sure that it rests on top of the gear, and then you can go ahead and put its little clip on. And now we're going to put on the two springs. So the first one to put on is the smaller one, and it goes between here on the nylon piece and this little metal part right here. And that spring is there to ensure that this piece springs back and hits the gear after it's done spinning. And the big spring goes between this nylon piece and the same metal bracket that the little spring goes into. And this spring makes sure that this nylon piece with the coil plunger pops back out after the machine is done energizing the coil. And Bally made a good decision when designing these score reels. When you go ahead and put the reel back on, which is what we're going to do next, you can't put it on the wrong way because there is a key on the reel. You can see right here a little part that sticks out, which corresponds to a divot in the gear itself. And giving you a closer look at the gear, you can see the little divot is right there. So the key on the reel will fit right into that. So it only goes on one way. So just like that, and then we'll go ahead and put the 3 screws in and the clip back on the center. And there we go, that is a score reel cleaned up. So now if we go ahead and manually step it through, you can see it steps real nice and smooth, no resistance, easy to turn. So that's how it should behave. And I've gone ahead and adjusted that inner switch. You can see right now we're at position 1, and that bottom switch is open like it should be. So if I go ahead and step through, if we go to 9, you can see it closes, and if we go to 0, they all open, and back to 1, just the 2 switches close. The bottom one, the innermost one, is open. So that's how it should be. And so now our player 4 score reel issue should be fixed. And it's also worth cleaning up this area here. You can see this is a spot that I haven't cleaned yet. I'll clean it when I do this reel. And there's just as much dirt right here. So go ahead and clean the little mounting bracket up as well if you want that to look nice. And when putting the score reel back in, it's not as simple as just sliding it in. You can see on this metal part right here, we have a little divot. This part goes over the top of, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little part that sticks out right here. That goes over that, and then this second part slides underneath it. And in order for that to happen, you have to hold the little release lever up while you put it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that first part over the top, which it is now, push the release up, and then slide the other part of the bracket underneath, and then it latches in. So the score reel's back in. I have 3 more left to do, and then after I clean those, we'll go ahead and we'll do our score reel test again. All right, the score reels are now all cleaned up. It took me a very long time to do that just because there's 16 reels that you have to do, but now they're all cleaned up. They all have dielectric grease on those copper contacts. So let's go ahead and start the machine up and we'll test out the reels. And look at that, all nice and smooth. They all reset perfectly fine. And I went through and I did the rollover test on all of the reels, and they all work just fine now. So cleaning up the score reels and putting new grease on made them work perfectly. So now we'll get started on solving the mechanical issues. So let's address the issue where when you push the start button on the coin door, the machine doesn't do anything, even though it's already got credits in it. So to figure that out, we're going to have to take a look at the schematic. You can see it's a really large document, a lot of complex circuits in one of these electromechanical machines. So if we zoom in right here, you can see right here we have the main power transformer. The winding on the left is the primary and the one on the right is the secondary. And on the secondary, you can see between this point and this point, we get 6 volts. And between this point and this point, we get 50 volts. So that's how you get your different voltages throughout the machine. And you can see we have these big, thick black lines here. Those are wires that are connected directly to the taps on the transformer. So every path going from one black line to another illustrates one circuit in the machine. So here's an example. Say that you're trying to troubleshoot why your first player 100,000 light isn't lighting up. That's this symbol right there. You simply have to go through the path going from one end of the transformer to the other, and that'll clue you in on what you need to look for. So you can see it goes through one of the 15 amp fuses through a switch on the lock relay, and then you go down here, it gets to the light, and then it goes through a switch on the first player 100,000 point relay, and then back to the transformer. So if you're trying to troubleshoot that, that is all you need to look for, because that is the only path that is going through that light and making a complete circuit. So that would be a very simple problem to solve, and that is how you trace out circuits on a schematic diagram like this. So let's go to the spot where the start button is at. So here's the spot we need to look at. You can see it is right here, the credit button. That is the old term for a start button. So if you see the word credit button, that means the same thing. So you can see we have one of our thick lines here and one here. So we need to find the path that goes through the credit button from this line to the other one right up there. So you can see if we trace back, it starts out going through a make-break switch on the second coin chute and the third coin chute. And then it goes over this wire here. You can see how it goes over like that. If there were a dot like this, then that would mean they're connected. But since it's going over like that, they're not connected. So we keep going this way. It goes through a make-break switch here, 1G. SCM stands for score motor, so this is a switch on the score motor. It goes through a normally closed switch. The way this schematic is drawn is with the machine on ball 1, like you just started the game. So the switch positions that you see are indicative of that configuration. So it goes through this closed switch on the reset relay, and then you have the credit button right here. And so when you press the button on the coin door, it will close that switch, and then it will go through the credit unit 0 switch. That is a switch on the credit unit that tells the machine if there are actually any credits in it. So if that's open, then that means it's got 0 credits, and when you push the start button, it won't do anything because you don't have any credits in it. So that will be closed when there's at least 1 credit in the game. And then the path kind of splits from here. You can see we have multiple wires connected there. It can go through either the coin unit limit switch, ball count unit 0, a switch on the game over relay, and the player up unit 0 switch. So one of those has to be closed in order for the start button to work. Then it goes through the credit relay coil, and so it will fire the credit relay. And then if we go in this direction, that's the last thing on the path, a switch on the delay relay. And I know that's not the problem because I've looked at other circuits. For example, the first coin chute. When you put a coin through the first chute, the one on the left, it will close the switch in the chute. It'll go right up through here and energize the coin relay, and that will start up the score motor and reset the game. And in order for it to do that, it goes through the delay relay so that it can make its way back to the transformer that way. So I know that this switch is not the problem. And you can see that the score motor right there is also on the same path. So if we go this way, one of these 4 switches has to close in order for the score motor to start turning. The third coin chute relay, the second coin chute relay, the coin relay, and the reset relay. So That makes sense because when you put in a coin and it hits the coin switch, it'll trigger the coin relay and cause the score motor to start turning, and that will, of course, fire some other relays to make the game reset. So what are our potential problems? It could be this score motor switch here. This closed part could be dirty and not making a connection up through here. The reset relay switch could have a problem. These two are not problems because I looked at the credit button switch, I looked at the credit unit 0 switch, and they were both fine. The coin unit limit switch isn't the problem because I cleaned all of the switches in the unit back here. But one of these 3 switches could be the problem as well, which would break the circuit up through the credit relay and back up this way to the transformer. So let's take a look at the score motor switch first, because I'm kind of suspecting that one, because when I was messing around with the machine, when I had the machine configured to use the second coin chute relay, it didn't always work. So I'm kind of suspecting this. So let's go ahead and open the playfield and take a look at switch 1G on the score motor. And here's what I meant about the second coin chute not working. So right now I have switched the plug in the machine to allow the second coin chute to give you more than 1 credit. And if I go ahead and close that switch, you can hear it firing the second coin chute relay. And what it should do is give you 2 more credits on the credit unit and fire the knocker twice. But as you can see, it's not doing that when I close the switch. It's just firing the relay, but nothing happens. So that leads me to believe it's the switch on the score motor, because that is the only thing in common in those 2 circuit paths. All right, minor correction to what I just said. That's actually not the only thing in common. You can see the second coin chute and the third coin chute, those make-break switches, they also go through the same path. But I know those aren't the issue because when I do the first coin chute, it always works and it fires the coin relay. You can see it goes through this path here. But the coin relay switch here is also in the same path, and it will make the score motor turn and reset the machine. And in order for it to do that, these 2 switches here must be closed because that is the only path that it is going through. So I know that those 2 switches are not the issue. So the next most common thing is the switch on the score motor. So let's see what's up with that switch. I promise not to make any more interjections this time. All right, so right here we have our score motor. You can see all the switch stacks on top of it. Now it's going to be kind of hard to see, but there's a label right next to the score motor that identifies the different cams on it. It goes from 1 to 12, and the one right here is cam 1. So we're looking for switch 1G, and the switches are labeled from the one closest to the cam out. So it's going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it's the very top switch here. And that switch looks like it's making contact, but it does seem a little dirty. You can see the top of the switch there is a little bit dirty. So that's the switch. I'm gonna go ahead and clean that up, and we'll see if it works after that. All right, so we have 6 credits in the machine, so it should be able to start itself. So let's see if that was the issue. It sure was. Let's go ahead and push it a few more times just to make sure that it's working. Ooh, it's not. And it didn't make the credit unit go down either. So that must have been one of the flukes, because I do notice that like 90% of the time it doesn't work, but every so often there's one time where if I press it, it will work. So that must have been one of the flukes, because when I start it, the credit wheel should have gone down to 5, and now when I press the button, it's not doing anything. So our problem must be elsewhere. Nope, that switch is the problem. You know why? Because if I put pressure on it, if I'm just gonna reach in the coin door and put pressure on that top switch, and then I'm going to push the start button again. And as you can see, it worked. So that switch on the score motor is indeed the problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean it again, and I'm gonna adjust it just to make sure that it's closing properly and that there's enough pressure on it for the signal to go through. So I'm gonna do that real quick. All right, I made sure that that switch is absolutely clean and that when it closes, it's actually pushing a little bit on the switch. So I'm going to go ahead and push the start button again, and we'll see if it works. Okay, so that was good. The credit unit didn't go down, so maybe that's a different problem. Let's press it again. Okay. That time the credit unit went down. It went down from 5 to 4, so press it one more time. So we must have another semi-working switch for the coil that steps the credit unit down. So let's go ahead and see where that is. And what do you know? There's a switch on the score motor that is involved with the credit unit step down. So it goes through switch on the coin relay, through switch 3B on the score motor, and a switch on the credit relay. And when you push the start button, it will fire the credit relay. And so that switch should close and cause the credit unit reset solenoid to fire, which will step down the credit unit by 1. So let's go ahead and take a look at switch 3B on the score motor, because I just have a hunch that that's where our problem is. So let's take a look at that first. So switch 3B is this cam, and it's the second switch, so AB. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that one up, make sure it's adjusted right, and we'll see if the credit unit works. Okay, watch the credit unit. I'm going to start it and we'll see if it goes down. And it sure did. I'm going to go ahead and put some more credits on it and push the start button a few times and see if it works okay. All right, 4 credits for 4 players. So let's go ahead and push the start button again. And I'll go ahead and push it 3 more times. Ooh, so that wasn't the problem. Well, it might have been a problem, but obviously I'm going to need to go through the other switches in that circuit, clean them up, and then it should be reliable. So it seems like it's a little better, but because we had 2 pushes at the start button where the credit unit didn't go down, I'm going to have to go through and clean up the other switches in that circuit. So let's go ahead and do that. So the only other switches in that circuit that I have to clean are one on the coin relay and one on the credit relay. Those are the only 3 switches in the whole machine that are responsible for firing the credit unit reset solenoid. So I'll show you where those 2 relays are and what switches I'm going to be cleaning. So the 2 relays in question are here. This is the coin relay, and here this is the credit relay. So one of those 2 switches is obviously dirty and causing the credit unit to not step down all the time. So you can see we have our relay here, and just by looking at the switches on it, it looks like they are all getting pushed down. You can see that when I push the relay in, the shorter blades get pushed by the longer ones, and you can see they do actually move a little bit when I do this. So it is properly closing those switches. And as for the credit relay, that bottom switch does seem like it's not moving very well. So I'm suspecting the credit relay, but what I'm going to be doing since I'm here, I'm just going to clean and adjust all of the switches on both relays so that those will not be a problem for anything else. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then our credit unit should be reliable. All right, I went ahead and cleaned those switches, and I just want to show you what your relay should look like when it is going in and out. So this is the credit relay, and you can see we have both open and closed switches on it. The 3 switches here are normally open, and this one is normally closed. So when you look at the normally open switches, when the relay goes in, you can see how when they push together, the other blade that gets pushed moves a little bit. That's what you want, because then there's enough pressure from the relay to actually close the switch real nicely. So if they move just a little bit like that, that's how you want it. And same goes for the normally closed switch on the left. When it opens, that leftmost blade should move a little bit, and you can see it's moving. So that switch is adjusted correctly, and so are all the other ones on this relay. So that's what that should look like. And I went ahead and did the same thing for the coin relay. It looked pretty good. I cleaned up all those switches, so now let's go ahead and test our credit unit. And with 4 credits, let's go ahead and do our test again. And that's the next problem we're going to address. See why it doesn't have the strength to kick the ball out half the time. So it worked the first time. Let's see if it does for the other 3 players. It doesn't. Okay, so I need to go through and clean up those switches again, because it's doing the same thing. All right, so what I did is I went ahead and cleaned up the normally closed switches on the credit unit itself again. I had done that before, but I went ahead and did it again. And I did a test on the 4 players, and it went down every time. Let's see if it does it again. It didn't. So I just need to go ahead and clean those switches, because that is literally the only things responsible for stepping that down. All right, well, it seems like just exercising the machine a little bit helped a lot, because that credit unit is a lot more reliable now. And what I noticed was going on was the credit unit, when it was working, it would hold itself on for a little bit, and the credit unit wheel would go down every time. But there would be some instances where it would hold on for just a split second, and that would be when the credit unit didn't go down at all. And I just did it like 20 times, and it went down each time. So I think just a little bit of exercise and making those switches move around kind of cleaned them up a little bit more. And so that credit unit has been going down every single time ever since I've done that. So I think the issue is fixed, but if the issue does present itself again, I know exactly what switches to look at. The 2 on the score motor, the ones on the coin relay, and the ones on the credit relay. So it seems like our issue with starting the game and making the credits go down when they're supposed to is completely fixed. And I'm going to call it there for part 1. We managed to get this machine to a point where you could turn it on, press start, have it reset properly, and go through the basic functionality of an electromechanical pinball game. So in part 2, we'll go about fixing all of the mechanical issues, including the second coin chute relay mechanism, and we'll fix everything else, and depending on how long that takes, we will start the playfield restoration as well. So look forward to all that, and I'll see you in my next video.